Hello, welcome back to Story Time. And the last time you were here, you listened to the first 4 chapters of Mary's Hair, written by Eoin Colfer and published by Barrington, Stoke. And to get it all in, it was also illustrated by Richard Watson, and they're fabulous illustrations in this book as well. And today I'm going to read chapter 5 to 8 and find out what happened to Mary's hair. Chapter 5. Next thing I knew, my mammy was standing in front of me. She'd come in for a gossip at Gloria and spotted me in the garden. Remember, she hadn't seen Mary's hair and what Mary had done to it. "Mary," she yelled, "what have you done?" I wanted to blame someone else for a minute, but there was no one. Even Peachy had been with Mam and Dad at the time. "You cut your hair, didn't you?" Mam said. I nodded. I was too scared to speak. "Look at the state of you," she said. "Well, I hope you've learned your lesson." I nodded again. All the girls nodded along with me, just in case they were in trouble too. "Get home now in front of me," Mam said. "Wait until your father sees this." She could be in trouble. I started to cry then. Big fat tears that dripped off the tip of my nose. It's a terrible thing to be popular for half an hour and then have to go back to being plain old Mary Leary. I might never get to go a rollerblade Barbie again. Poor Mary, huh? I'd learned my lesson all right. This is the lesson I'd learned. If you're going to do something to your hair, it's a good idea to try it out on someone else first. So I'd have to find a volunteer for my hair experiments in future. Oh, chapter 6. Mam made me promise never to cut my hair again. She even made sure that my fingers weren't crossed when I made the promise. But she never said that I couldn't dye my hair. So that was what I decided to do next. If my hair was a lovely blonde colour, you might not notice the crooked fringe and the spiky curls. The next morning I went to look for a volunteer to test the dye on. I asked the girls, but they ran away screaming. That usually means no. So I had to ask someone who would do anything just to have a friend. Nolie Rochford always had a runny nose. By the age of 7, he still hadn't figured out how to use a hanky. And this meant that not even the other boys wanted to hang around with him, and they were a fairly smelly bunch themselves. So when I called at Nolie's house that Sunday, he was a bit surprised to see me. Nolie came to the door wearing a woolly hat, poo PJs and fuzzy bunny slippers. "How would you like a friend?" I said. "Who is it?" he asked. "Me, but only for today." Nolie thought about it for a second, and he wiped his nose on his PJ sleeve. "Okay." "There's one condition though. You'll have to get your hair dyed blonde." Nolie wiped his nose on the other sleeve. "Okay." "Come on then," I said. "The hairdresser's is in my house. I'll sit on the wall until you get changed." "Changed?" Boys, they've no brains. "You need to change into your clothes, Nolie. You can't wear your PJs through the estates." "Oh, okay." It took Nolie almost an hour to get changed. My bum was getting sore sitting on the wall. I was thinking about looking for another volunteer when the door opened and out he came. "Oh no," I moaned. Nolie had taken his hat off and there was no hair on his head, only fuzz. "I got a shave," he said. "A number 2. Do you like it?" "No, Nolie, I don't like it," I said. "How am I supposed to dye a bald head?" I thought Nolie was going to cry then. "Are you not my friend anymore?" he said. I almost said no, but then I remembered something. "Nolie, don't you have a dog? A little shaggy-haired dog?" "Yep," said Nolie. "Bruce is my best friend in the world." I said. I had another brilliant idea. "Why don't you ask him to come with us?" Chapter 7. My brilliant idea was to dye the dog's hair. If the whole thing went wrong, Bruce wouldn't even be able to complain, except to other dogs. Poor Bruce doesn't know what's going to happen to him. I sneaked Nolie and Bruce upstairs to the bathroom. There was no need to sneak, of course. Mammy and Daddy were busy trying to stop Petey kicking long enough to change his nappy. Bruce was perfect for my practice run. He had a big head of shaggy brown hair, almost exactly the same as mine. Now, all I had to do was to get Bruce into the shower. The steps on the packet of hair dye were simple. Wet the hair, rub in the dye. No problem. I gave Nolly his orders. Tell Bruce to get into the bath. You get in with him and hold his head still. Nolly sniffed. Can't. And why not, Mr. Rochford, I said. The teacher always called Nolly Mr. Rochford when she was annoyed with him. I'm not allowed in the bath without my mammy, teacher, Nolly said. I mean Mary. Well, how am I supposed to wet Bruce's hair then, and what's he doing now? Bruce had his head stuck down the toilet. His back legs were up on the toilet seat. He's having a drink, Nolly said. Bruce loves drinking out of the toilet. And then I had another brilliant idea. I crept over to the toilet and lifted off the cistern lid. It was really heavy, but I'm very strong for my size. The water inside was blue because of the toilet bleach, but I thought it should be okay to use. I poured in all the hair dye and I stirred it around with Daddy's toothbrush. Then I flushed the toilet. Whoosh went the water all over Bruce's head. The poor dog fell right into the bowl where I spun round and round with the blue water. Nolly started to cry. Bruce is drowning. What have you done, Mary Leary? Maybe my idea wasn't so brilliant after all. But then the toilet stopped flushing and Bruce's head popped up over the rim. Rough, said Bruce. It wasn't a happy rough. It was an I'll get you for that rough. He hopped out of the toilet and ran off down the stairs. Nolly ran off after his dog. I didn't understand why Bruce was so upset. It was only a bit of hair dye and some bleach. Now, I couldn't even check the results of the dye. I was putting Daddy's toothbrush back when I spotted something odd. All the bristles were gone. They had melted away. Now, what could have done that? Chapter 8. Mammy made me go and say sorry to Nolly. He was still crying even after 2 days. Sorry, Nolly, I said. I tried to sound really sad. You made Bruce all funny looking, Mary Leary. It was true. Bruce did look funny. Half his body was white and the other half was brown. He looked like two dogs stuck together. He looks funny, but it kind of looks cool at the same time. I think he looks nice, I said. Like a superhero dog. Really? Really? Do you forgive me now? No, and Bruce doesn't either. That was a surprise. I thought Nolly would forgive me straight away, just so he would have a friend. Friends forgive each other, I said. Nolly lifted his sleeve to wipe his nose. There was a plaster on the sleeve, and there was a message written on the plaster, and it said, use your hanky. Nolly took a hanky from his pocket and gave his nose a big blow. You're not my real friend, he said. You only wanted to play so you could turn Brucey white. Bruce is my real friend. Nolly was right. Bruce was his real friend. I'd only called at his house because none of the girls would let me dye their hair. If I play with you for a week, will you forgive me then? I asked. Nolly thought about it. A month. 2 weeks. Okay, he said, it's a deal. We shook hands because that's what you do when you make a deal. Nolly's hand was a bit sticky. I heard Mammy calling me from up the street. I have to go now, I said. Where? Mammy's taking me to have my hair cut short so it'll grow out all the same length. You're getting a skinner? Nolly asked. I nodded. I didn't want a skinner. I hadn't had short hair since I was a baby. Nolly smiled. Well, don't worry, Mary. Even if your hair turns horrible, I'll still play with you. Thanks, Nolly. You're a real friend. I ran up the road and Mammy was beeping the car horn for me to hurry up. Maybe Nolly wouldn't be such a bad friend after all. He had a cool dog and he was good at taking orders. The most important thing was that he was learning to use a hanky. No more tricks. Real friends didn't play tricks. Anyway, Mammy had banned me from using hair dye, so now I couldn't cut or dye my hair. But Mammy hadn't said anything about perms. Maybe I could give myself one of those. Thank you for listening. That was the last 4 chapters of Mary's Hair. And that was written by Eoin Colfer and published by Barrington Stoke Books. Bye-bye.